Oh, I get Freddie one. He's on
I'm
here.
struggling.
10 years.
10 o'clock
Baseball, baseball.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is 4 o'clock. Time to begin our September 7th meeting, 4 o'clock meeting. And at this time, we'll call ourselves to order. Item 1 on our 4 o'clock meeting is the Union County Parks and Recreation Master Plan update. Excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. I want to thank you for allow me a few minutes just to explain where we're at with our comprehensive master plan. My name is Bill Whitley, and I serve as the Director of Parks and Rec for Union County. Also would like to thank Mr. Brian Bourne and his staff of working closely with us in putting input into our inventory and our stakeholders meeting. Currently, we have started our comprehensive master plan. We're about 3 months into it, and it should complete in about May. We have completed our online survey. It finished up at the end of September. We received a little over 1,000 surveys in that event. And it was about a 6-week process, and we're looking forward to what it has to say. We have also completed a statistically valid survey, which was a phone survey sent out to various parts of the county, trying to get a good read on all parts of the county so that everyone's represented fairly. I recently did attend one of your events, which is the Music in the Streets event, and I enjoyed it very much, and I saw that people enjoyed it very much also. One of the things that is in our online survey was that people would really like our festival, the festival which is held by municipalities. As you well know, we have finished our first public meeting. It was held in the Ag Center. 54 people actually attended that meeting, and we got some good feedback to that. And I've tried to distribute it through leaders in Union County. Our next meeting is actually in November. We're trying to get it finished up before Thanksgiving so that we don't lose time over the Thanksgiving holidays and Christmas holidays. It is actually set for November 18th, and we'll be sending out some invites, reminders on that to everyone. The place is yet to be determined. We're trying to get it a place on the western side of the county. We had the eastern side of the county, we got the western side of the county, then the final one. We're going to try to do it in Central Piedmont so that we can get as many people at these events as possible. And we'll also be sending an invitation out on that. But another quick look at our online surveys, it showed that citizens are asking for more walking trails and greenways. As you know, walking is the least expensive recreation there is in the United States, and the natural trend always shows that citizens want more of that. So one of our things that we're doing in our comp plan is we're actually having a tour. We're calling it the Introduction to Greenway Tour invitation, and we're going to send out invitation to all municipalities to send a couple reps to that if they'd like to, and also to all the Parks and Rec teams. Many people don't really understand exactly what greenways actually do for a community, so we're trying to explain that during this event, to learn the benefits of the greenway and how it actually brings communities together. And I do look for input from everybody on this plan, and we're really trying to reach out to all the municipalities, all the non-municipality areas, and trying to get as much input as we can in this plan. So at the end, we get what really the people want. And as we have learned in this thing, Union County really has more than we know we have. So I think one of the things hopefully we can do at the end of this is trying to help our citizens know all the things that we have and share. One of the things that I've learned and I've read and I've been taught is try not to duplicate what we already have. And so that's what one of our goals is to be in this thing, is trying to find out what other people are doing and save taxpayer dollars by not duplicating. Mr. Mayor and Town Council, I do thank you for your time, and that's my brief for you where we stand today.
Any questions for Mr. Whitley? Thank you very much. I'm sorry.
Just one. You said that on a telephone survey you sent it to various parts of the county. Which parts do you remember?
It went, they did a database and they tried to get all parts of the county.
Oh, okay.
So that it would be statistically valid.
Okay.
And different age groups and stuff.
I have a question. You are trying to incorporate the master plan along with the Carolina Thread Trail too, right?
We were looking at Carolina Trail, that is part of the thing, and actually when we get done, it's just like anything, we'll have a list of things we'd like to do, and as funds come available, we'll try to do those. But we're really also trying to look at what things we can do that cost no money.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think there's some things we can do there also.
Thank you, Mr. Whitley. Appreciate that very much, sir. Item 2, Charlotte Monroe Executive Airport Hangar Development Update. Mr. Peter?
Good evening, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you well know, I'm here as the new airport manager, and I'm here to present my first report on the strategic outlook and plan for hangar development at the airport. Right now, what I've been presented with in terms of the airport, we've have invested about $26 million in the airport facilities, in the runway improvements and extension. And that's leveraged also $8 million in federal state grants. I've also noted that we have a strong aerospace aviation-related business recruitment in the area. Very strong in terms of examples like Cyril Bath, Goodrich, and Chevron Mecca. But with the airport itself, we are, in the assets on the ground, we have not seen any real growth in the last 10 years, and that's specifically to do with planes and hangars at the airport. I have a slide here, a presentation, hopefully you can see it well. You have handouts if you need to see it closer hand, of a chart showing the property tax history over the last 10 years, approximately. Benchmark is FY 2006, 2011, and 2014. And what you can see by the slide, the graph especially, is how the significant growth is between the corporate center and the surrounding areas. But the airport tax base has not had that much significant growth. Drilling it down further, if you look at specifically the history of the taxable values from the last 10 years, you can also see the same story in a little greater detail. The increase, there's only been no increase in aircraft and actually a slight decrease in hangars. Now, this is not necessarily a bad story. What's indicative to me is that the airport is maximum out. They have maximum capacity, reached maximum capacity, which in some ways is a good thing to say. But it also reflects against the operating revenue and expenditure, which I know you all are well aware of. And as this graph represents, you can see how the airport has been trending with the expenditures being parallel with the revenues, but they are slightly higher. I say slightly higher, $600,000, which is not slight. So with that information on hand, then I have to apply my basic airport principles, which is what? I have to increase my revenue sources. And there's two values here. There's two types of sources that I have to do. I have to do my variable sources, which is my FBO operations. That's my fuels and concessions. That's based on the activity that I get out there. And I try to bring that in. But there's also the fixed revenue, which is the ground and hangar leases. That's very important too, because that also reflects increased values of the airport in terms of airplanes and hangars, the tax base. So with that principle, I have an objective. I have to reduce that operating deficit to achieve self-sufficiency, which is mandated by the FAA, incidentally, in our grant assurances. I have to increase the assets on the ground, both in terms of planes and hangars, which is thereby produces the tax revenue, the property tax revenue. And then it drives, it increases, it brings about more based fuel sales and services from the base customers, not just the itinerant customers, the transient customers that come through there. How do I do that? With my plan, my development plan. It starts with what we call the airport layout plan, and this is an approved FAA plan. This is one that I submitted to the FAA, and they have blessed it, and our grant monies is actually based on this development plan, this airport layout plan. In that plan, we have follow-on phases of development for hangar development, both on the north side, on the south side, on the northwest side. So all areas of the airports are incorporated in this development plans. But as part of a good development plan, we have to consider the cost. First of all, the infrastructure costs to develop those plans, because we have to put some roads in, some utilities in. To get these sites developed, you have to do it. It's like in any community development plan, you have to consider the access. And then the hangar or office structures that we have to build to bring in more based airplanes and hangars. And then part of that is also the financing, the administrative part. The bank rates, the property tax rates, what we charge to get those finances. But it's all oriented towards the return of investment and to increase that tax base. Again, mantra is planes and hangars. What available sources are there? Well, there's the city financing. But let me caution or say that the financing is only if and when it's directly supported by a lease revenue stream. That's the important part in these development plans. They have to be only generate, we can only go out to them because it doesn't pay us if we don't get money back from the investments that we do out there at the airport. There's private investment. There's knowing a lot of bankers financing that would come to the table willingly to assist in development plans. And then there's some exploration done with the county in partnership with them, the synthetic TIFs and the grants, the incentives and the utility grants. With this plan, I'm not going to be idealistic. There is challenges to it and limitations. One of them is the hangar capacity. And this is driven in general by like in a community development plan. It's no different. We want to make sure that we have accurate forecasting so that we don't exceed our capacity. If we have demand for so many hangars or bringing in so many airplanes, let's make sure that there's enough hangars available. We're not going to build more than we need. Same thing with the values of the aircraft. We have to be realistic with the values of the aircraft. Currently, right now, in a general range of aircraft values, typical general aviation aircraft run from about $50,000 on the low end to hundreds of thousands on the high end. Your average, your bell distribution aircraft. There are multi-million-dollar aircraft out there, but they are obtainable, and we can get them in if we make the right pitch to the right people. But those are by the exception. They are not the norm. So we have to be realistic, but that's okay because I, in some ways, would rather bring in a smaller airplane that brings multiple aircraft that bring hundreds of thousands of dollars than land one fish, so to speak, one aircraft that's worth $8 million. Because those multiple aircraft also burn more fuel, which in turn help make me achieve that self-sufficiency with my operating revenues. The time for occupancy, that's another critical point in this development plan that we have to be realistic with. The point is that right now, if everything was in place today to kick off construction for, say, a hangar right now, realistically, construction probably wouldn't start until the springtime. So by the time construction is finished, which would be 8 to 10 months, it would be almost this time next year before the aircraft would actually be based at our airport. And the hangar would be actually realized, the hangar improvement would be realized. And then with that, I mentioned this before, it's just a basic concept, the investment guarantees. We just have to make sure that whatever obligations we put ourselves out there are secured with some kind of revenue stream to cover that cost, that return of investment. I'm happy to report that right now I'm currently actively working. I show on the board right there 4. I really have 6 that have come to me since I've been creating this slide. The first one is a regional aircraft operator who's interested in building a 15,000 square foot hangar, and there's no site cost to us. As such, also the next one is a national company that wants to build a 10,000 square foot hangar. They're willing to put their money into our airport, but there will be some site costs associated with it. And then the next 2, an local aircraft operator here from the city area, from another community on the other side of town, and this aircraft center. They're both people that have come to us and are requested that the city invest the money into this hangar facility. And then finally, the airport and myself we see a demand, we see a need, at least for one hangar where we can have at least put 10 more airplanes in that hangar. I have a waiting list right now with 10 aircraft that have indicated to me that they are willing to put in first and last month's rent to build this hangar. So that's not enough to cover the cost, but it's that promissory note that I need to know that these people are serious, and they haven't indicated that to me. So the demand is there. So I'll go back to my point about making sure that I look at the correct sources of income that I can bring in to increase this, and they are there. And that would increase our revenue for our leases, for fuel sales, and obviously the tax revenue.
I've got one question. On this
Yes, ma'am.
On this aircraft center, do you have somebody waiting to have a hangar and office combination?
Well,
or-
yeah, let me explain that one a little bit better. It's an interesting concept. What they are is a company that's brought to me a prospectus. They want to start a business out, a training center business for a general aviation aircraft. And they want for us to build them a facility that is a combination of an office and hangar. And really, they already said that they don't need all of the hangar space, that if we build the hangar, we can use part of the hangar for our use to store additional airplanes. And the thing about this is, it's not only, it's their business that they want to bring to the airport, but they have a network of aircraft owners that would come to their facility to train to upgrade their ratings, their qualifications. So that would drive actually not only this facility, which in a concept, and I'll show you here in a second, this example, not this specific example, but the one beside it, they would lease the hangar from us.
Is this in the nature of a limited service FBO?
Yes, in part. It's a commercial operator. Or I like to call them a SASO, a Specialized Aircraft Services
All right.
Operator.
I just wondered where it felt in a,
Right,
where
and they would meet those.
where it worked in our minimum standards.
Yes, and they would have to meet our minimum standards. And they are aware of that. I've shared those documents with them, so they are totally aware of that. But the idea would be is they are a business, as they call it, a destination that would attract more individual owners to come and be based out of our airport. That's the concept. So it's a business that would actually generate more.
Peter, can you, I don't know whether you're at liberty or not, can you talk a little bit about the equipment they would be bringing in, or I don't know what you can expand on?
Well, I'm a little bit sensitive to that just because I'm conservative in that nature, but they would bring hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment and services to our facility, to the airport, that would create that destination at the airport. So for other airplanes, and they actually have gotten an endorsement by the aircraft manufacturer to be put on their map, so to speak, as a destination, so that anybody that owns this type of airplane, they would be pointed out. Well, if you go to the Charlotte Monroe Executive Airport, there is a aircraft center there that has our services, our branded services, training, whatever you have for that. And that generates, so these pilots that fly this type of airplane would look, where is the closest location where I could get this training or requalification, upgrade, and our map and our airport would show up. And so that means they would fly to our airport to get that training, which means when they're ready to leave, they could get more fuel from us. So that's the idea. It generates more business. Here's the example I want to share with you. This is an example of a hangar development, how we would do a hangar development. And it's straight from this list of the prospects. The requirement is that they would like an 8,000 square foot hangar to operate an aviation business, a corporate hangar out there at the airport. What we would offer them is 1.25 acres of property. We would provide the improvement. We would build the hangar, we would build the ramp. We would give them a 25-year lease with 2 5-year renewal options for a total of 35-year lease. What the city would get in turn, a base lease. And right now that is an established, approved by you all, the lease rate of 19.6 cents a square foot per year. When you make out the multiplication, it comes out to be $10,672 a year. they would sign, the lease would not be signed or approved unless they committed to paying back the $1 million+ in improvement that we would do. And we would do it through a 15-year note that would be financed through a bank or an investment. And that pass-through, and it would be a straight pass-through, that money that they pay for that, we would just turn it and pay it off the first 15 years of the lease straight to the bank. So starting on the 16th year, that number that you see, the $72.53, would come straight to us as profit. Because the note is taken care of, is solved. So the total remittance for them, for what they want, the 8,000 square foot hangar, we give them the 1.25 acres with the hangar and ramp. We charge them $81.42 a month. For the first 15 years, we do $72.53 pass-through to repay the note. And then we also get the $889, but after that, at the end of on the start of the 16th year, that money comes straight to the city.
Just make sure I got this clarified.
Mm-hmm.
That if we would have a legal agreement with them before we expended any city funds to build for the sites.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, it's written in the lease that they would repay that 15-year note. That's how, and they would be afforded the schedule. That's straight from the
So we would
finance.
have that up front before we expended any city money.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's how the
Make
deal
sure it's
works.
clear.
Yes,
that I
ma'am.
understand.
No, and I agree with you, and that's why I go back to the point that I made earlier, that we have to make sure that whatever we do is taken care of through the direct revenue stream of that lease. And so that's just for the property itself. We're not counting any additional revenue that we would get for fuel and sales services. Now, I have taken on plan to show you this. I don't have a slide, I have this box, or this poster to show you. And to orient you all, this is the actual terminal building right here. And this is the big ramp here, and this is normally where we have the air show right here. And this is the entrance where people come in through the entrance. This is one of our large hangars here. So there's 3 areas that I'm looking at for development. This is the primary one that I'm looking for right now, which is this area over here to the southwest of the terminal building, just beyond our large fuel farm, our fuel tanks that are sitting right over here by the terminal building. This particular hangar here, I'll point out, is the one that I'm already working with back with the other company, the one that is the regional company that's looking to do a 15,000 square foot hangar. And as I understand it right now, and I'm actually going to meet with them tomorrow, there is no site cost involved with it. What they indicated to me early on was all they wanted was a lease, and they would take care of everything else. All I would have to go out and do is survey the property.
You mean a ground lease?
Yes, it would be a ground lease. And what I would do with them is to develop a lease structure that would be only, I say only, the property value, so the base lease, as I show up there on the example. There's no upfront cost from the city.
But you
But at
get
the
both
end
the
of-
hangar and the aircraft and property taxes, since that city
Yes,
doesn't
sir.
own the
Yes, sir.
hangar.
That's what I was about to point out. Exactly. That happens immediately once the construction is built. So there's no upfront cost. And in addition, there's the fuel sales and services that we would start reaping benefit from. Right here. That would be that. And then at the end of the 25 years, the initial term of the lease is written so that that building reverts to ownership to the city. So that's this site here. And then, like I said, this was this one. I'm holding off on this one, honestly, because there is already activity here that if I start to work on this plan, I will disrupt not only my ability to gain revenues, because, for instance, these 3 hangars overlay actual tie-down spots that generate revenue for me right now. Second of all, I've got a hangar, an existing hangar that sits right here. That's the old dome-shaped hangar that's out there that has a viable business in there. And I would be putting somebody out of business to construct 2 hangars here. So I don't want to really work this plan yet. It is a redevelopment plan. I'd rather focus on this one, which is empty space right now, and these, which are empty space too. But I should point out that this also will require some development costs, because to make this ready, site ready for someone to come in and build, I have to put in a road and I have to get the utilities for more sites.
What grant monies are available for something like this, or do you know now?
I can tell you there's none available, at least from the FAA standpoint. The FAA standpoint deals primarily with grant monies that are strictly for public infrastructure, i.e. the runway, the airfield,
Right.
the taxiway, anywhere where the public has access to. In this case, this area here, it is not public accessible. It really becomes like a private community, almost like a, if you will, like the equivalent of the corporate center. This is the Monroe Corporate Aviation Center. It would be a private development, if you will, for aircraft owners to build their corporate hangars here. And this is where, incidentally, I have the national company destined to be in this hangar right here.
Question, please.
Yes, sir.
On your international flights that are gonna come back in from customs, where show me where your jets are gonna come in and dock.
Well, it's not shown on this map, unfortunately. It's a little bit, this is after the map I used does not show the terminal, the customs facility, but it's located right here.
Okay.
And let me point out that this area, so I made to mention that this is the terminal area, what we call the terminal area, right where the main terminal is. There's other areas of development right now for the airport development overall. I'm reluctant right now, it's too far-fetched to go out there and build way out here south of the airfield or way up here northwest or even further down this area. I have enough resource, so to speak, right here in the immediate area that I feel I can do in the short term considerable effect in bringing more aircraft and hangars.
Will these be twin engine, single engine, or what type of aircraft are you talking about?
This one would have multiple corporate jets, 2 to 3 corporate jets would be immediately based here.
And that's gonna be privately owned, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The national company would bring in a $8 million Learjet to plus equipment and others, so we're looking at $8 million plus. This is the idea to bring the corporate center in here. The airplanes, the average cost of one of these airplanes is a little bit under $1 million, about $800 to $1 million. But once again, I say, I'd rather bring in, if they come, he can assure me that he knows of at least 3 or 4 customers that are already interested in, he's reached out to some of his people that he's going to be working with, and he's saying 3 to 4 people will easily follow him if he opens up this business here.
Is that a maintenance facility there?
No, it is not a maintenance facility, it's a pilot training center,
Pilot training center?
like a flight school, so to speak.
I mean, is it gonna be touch and go type thing?
Yes, sir, but it's like single engine, nice single engine aircraft. And then these other aircraft here are local operators that would bring corporate jets in the hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment.
I agree with everything you're doing, but if you're really working to bring the corporate jets in, which is where your big money is.
Yes, sir.
Is touch and go a real good idea, considering these jets flying there at that cost? Because I've seen it when, my gosh, we got putt planes coming in, then we got a $30 million jet fixing to take off.
And that is true. However, we have to be careful that in the FAA's eyes, we cannot ignore or focus primarily on, we have to be available to all types of traffic. But, as I've said, all airports have a niche focus that they work towards. You know, recently in the news, you had Concorde announcing about Legionnaire and doing all that stuff. That's great for them. That's even better for us, because as long as we stay true to our name, Charlotte Monroe Executive Airport, we can project that image that this airport is for the corporate aviator. This port is for the executives to use in and out of this community. That's what we want. That's what I want for this airport. And so that's what my focus is. But a lot of aircraft owners and the type of that I'm talking about that want to do this pilot training center our business. It just so happens that they fly these real nice little single-engine airplanes that are worth a lot of money.
Can you schedule your touch and goes around the flight plans filed by the larger jets coming?
That, I don't have direct control over the air traffic into the facility, but that works out in themselves. And believe me, when they have these big jets that are coming in, because normally these big jets are on approach themselves, instrument approach using radar services from Charlotte Douglas. So typically they clear any air traffic, smaller traffic in the area. And if there's an airplane, a corporate jet that's on approach, those guys have to wait, the training aircraft. And really, in the operations, I've noticed, and I'm kind of drilling down in the time that I've been here, 5 months, I've noticed that even the flight schools themselves tend to stay away from being a nuisance or getting in the way of these corporate traffic that come in and out. So we haven't had any issues per se right now with corporate traffic. These guys tend to stay
What
away.
about your flight school that's out there now? Isn't there one out there?
Yes, sir. There's actually two official operators that we have: Fly Carolina and Arrowwood. And
Question, is in some respects, is that not a nuisance, trying to grow that airport to what you're really shooting for?
No, because it's a blend of all those, because even those corporate aviators started at a certain level in those little single engine airplanes, so they appreciate them and they don't actually have any problems with them. They value those, all those folks get along together, those pilots. Once you're a pilot, and they talk shop and everybody gets along pretty much. I have not seen any issue where the flight schools or the corporate jets have said to me, hey, you have problems with too many flight operations out here.
Does Concord have any flight schools?
Yes, sir, they do. They have 4, I believe, total out there.
Just mixing in with all the jet traffic?
And that's a challenge even for the controlled airfield. Actually, believe it or not, there's more challenge with a controlled airfield than an uncontrolled airfield, which is what we are, meaning we don't have a control tower. They just talk to each other. They work it out between themselves, who comes in and who takes off.
Well, didn't he say the FAA requires you to, essentially,
Oh, yes, ma'am.
aviation
Yes,
to be
ma'am.
everybody?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So what's the takeaway? We have achieved maximum capacity as we sit currently today. I have 102 based airplanes, as I show on that slide. My hangars are completely full, all 4 hangars that I have, because I count one that's not really listed there, but all my hangars are full out there. My tie-down spots, I have very limited capability. So what we call our T hangars, those are completely full. I've reached maximum capacity. We've done everything we can to bring the number of airplanes that we have now. And we have made good investments. The city has made good investments to the community, to this airport, with the runway extension and the improvements, the customs facility. Those are great investments for GA Airport. It sets us above the typical GA Airport. And once again, it serves to that niche that I'm looking for, the corporate aviator, the executive. That's what this airport is about. Now we're just poised to go to the next level, and what we need to do is grow the capability to bring more based airplanes. We have the potential to bring more based airplanes here, but what's left now is to focus on these hangar developments, and that's what I'm going to try to do, with the ultimate goal of reducing the subsidy, making myself self-sufficient, and increasing the tax base.
So you're saying, if I understand it right, the one you want to concentrate on right now is this first one you got here, is that correct?
This one and this one. And this one is the one that I have.
You don't have to have any money for it?
No, sir.
Okay, that's what
But this is the one that I'm going to be looking to do. But anything that I do,
You're gonna pre-lease?
I'm going to pre-lease with their commitment to do the financing, to help with the financing.
Correct. And as Peter is mentioning, this area over here requires almost $1 million of roadway and utility improvements to getting access to those 4 pads. And that we're working with these companies to split that evenly. So depending on the sequence of how we sign those leases and how we get that is how that would work. So I just wanted to clarify.
Is it too early to estimate a cost benefit? Yeah.
No, actually, what we were looking at and how we're structuring, how we're talking with items is all of the ground lease is the benefit. all of the taxes are the benefit. The costs of construction of improvements and of the hangars, should the city do that, are direct pass-through. So we have those all released. So we get the 19.6 cents per square foot, and all the tax benefits that come to the city.
Well,
That's just for the land, then you still have to be operating the additional fuel sales and that.
what will you be bringing back to the council next, in your estimation?
I hope to have a request to approve a lease, or maybe two. And
Well,
that's what I'm working on right now.
We prefer more.
I think, I'd like to say that I think that your plan was very impressive. You know, we hired you to move us forward, and I think that's what you're going to do. And Mayor, if, I don't know if it's appropriate, but if it is, I'd like to make a motion that we move forward to the next step as far as doing the ground level and the hangars.
That's,
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any questions, questions, comments?
Have unread this, Mayor.
I'm sorry.
What amount of money right now do you foresee us having to come out of the general fund with in order to support your activities out there?
I don't know about the general fund. In terms of my budget monies, I do have some budget monies for some preliminary administrative work that I need to get done, surveying and engineering of that nature. But it would be monies that I would program into getting as part of that reinvestment when I get a lease put together. I would cover those additional costs, those preliminary costs too.
No, I'm talking about the road work that you're doing, the
That's
site
what
work and all of that.
That's what I'm talking about. So if I end up having a budget of about $10,000 to $15,000 to do preliminary engineering of such, when it comes time to divvy up, as Mr. Danko just mentioned, the cost of development costs, I want to make sure that $15,000 is also incorporated so that we would recoup
It's
that.
incorporated into the lease part.
Well, one thing,
What-
excuse me, Mr. Jordan, I'm sorry.
And Mr. Jordan, there's several options of how to do this. And one would be just to come up with the cash. Another would be to borrow the money and do a borrowing and just have that lease stream be repaid and match our funds up of our outgo and the income. Of course, we have to borrow it and build it before we'll get the lease stream in. So there would be a lag of about a year, but we could structure the payments to make it work.
Okay, because I heard that $1 million that you're talking about, and maybe splitting that with the folks who want to have the hangars.
Yes, sir.
And I know we just got through doing the financing package for the new fire station, and that includes quite a large sum for site improvement. So I just wanted to make sure that whatever we're going to do out there is going to be done through bank financing, you know, with the expectation that leases will repay the bank and that we don't have to put forth a huge sum of money out of general fund.
And it's not
Make
my
all this-
intent, and I put that on the table when I deal with these folks, that I let them know what my cost is, that I'm not a for-profit. All I'm trying to do is recoup my costs that I have to lay out. That number that I put there, $1 million+ improvements, that 8,000 square foot hangar, generally, rule of thumb number for building an 8,000 square foot hangar is about $100 a square foot. So that's $800,000 there. So the balance of that $1 million+ would include the site development, which we calculated to be a little bit less than $1 million.
Which includes the road.
And the utilities, and then any contract administration, engineering, that kind of thing would all be folded into that number that would be split 4 ways, in this case, between these 4 entities.
Okay, and again, Greg, that is going to go through bank financing, and the city has not been asked to upfront any of these monies to put this together.
That's the way we are designing the plan currently. to present the cost.
All right, I think from this chart, we're putting what, about 700, we're subsidizing about $700,000 a year.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that
And
including?
operating.
And operating, yeah, operating expenditures, yeah. What is the debt service again on the airport?
About $1 million.
About $1 million a year?
$1 million a year till 2028.
So we're, 1.7 is what we're putting in.
And quite frankly, that's Peter's charge, is not to recoup the debt service, but to reduce the amount of subsidy, 700,000, through operations.
Well, we need to do something, because 1.7 million is a lot to subsidize.
And the piece is, as Peter said, we're maxed out, and having more value on the ground is the way that we could start recouping.
Mayor, based on the information I just received and assurances that we're not being asked to front any money for what we see here today, I'm ready for the question.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that will pass. Thank you, Mr. Peter, for the presentation. It was very nice. Thank you so much. Good luck to you.
Thank you, sir.
Look forward to you. Bring a handful of money back.
That's what he's here for.
Yeah, it's all about the bottom line. Item 3, discussion of city council travel policy and practices. Excuse me. I'm eating with a cold. I can't get my throat clear. I apologize for that. Who will be handling that?
Mr. Mayor, I think the staff can make some introductions. We did not put this on the agenda, but we're happy to help in any way we can. Mujib has done a wonderful job in contacting his fellow city attorneys in the Charlotte area to come up with their travel policies, and I think he's prepared a spreadsheet that shows them to you, and I believe you have them. If you don't,
I have them. I don't know if the members do, and if the members don't, we'll make sure you get them.
pass them out.
Yeah, I don't we don't copy that yet. But we'll make sure you get them. If everyone wants to wait a moment, we can go ahead and make copies quickly, but we can sum up what's on those or talk briefly about your policy and how that goes.
Okay. What I'd like to say on behalf of the staff is the same thing that I said when we talked about procurement, about your purchasing, which is that the staff is your resource to help you in policy development of your own purchasing guidelines and your own travel guidelines. I was thinking the other night that I've been in 9 cities, and every city that I've been into had a different travel policy. The only goal that Mujib and I would say, the only restriction on travel for both staff and council is that travel be carried out for public purpose. And I think that Larry and Mujib and I were saying that after you've been in the business a long time, public purpose, you really do know it when you see it. Your staff and I, we are at your disposal to help you research other cities, which Mujib will get you in a second. We are here to help you amend your policy if you wanted amendment, or to help you in any way you see fit. But we are not here to in any way insert ourselves into the development of your own travel policy. That's not our job. And I don't mean that in an ugly way. We are your staff. That's our goal. But what we have is we have presented a spreadsheet that shows what Monroe, Charlotte, Concord, Fayetteville, Greensboro, and Greenville do with their travel policies. And I will tell you that I've been in 2 cities. Statesville has no travel policy for the council, and no council member travels. They've never, in 17 years, they've never been to a national meeting, and they've never been to a league meeting. They go sometimes to town hall day, and that's it. In Lumberton, we had no travel policy. In Lumberton, we usually spend somewhere between $70,000 and $90,000 a year 15 years ago, and all the council members were involved in the National League of Cities. They were on the Transportation Committee, the Finance Committee, the Environment Committee, and they traveled all over the nation. Neither of them have travel policies. So you see the amount of money they spent varied wildly, regardless of whether they had a policy. There are other cities, as you'll see, that have gone to a member policy where each council member is given a certain amount of money, and the mayor's given a certain amount of money, and they can do with what they want so long as there is a public purpose. There are other cities where each council member looks at their memberships and what they would like to do as individual council members and submit to the finance director at budget time what they believe they individually will spend on travel to represent their own clientele, their own district in some cases. And the department head, the finance director adds all of those requests up and comes up with an annual travel budget. So you can see there are any number of ways that you can set your travel budget up, and your staff is ready and willing to help you discuss it. But the only constraint upon both anyone in public service is that of our travel be public purpose. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, let me ask the council this. Does the council want to leave it like it is? Does the council want to have a two-people committee? And when I say two people, they can have what they want, as you know. If we do a committee type thing, to look at it and see if they want to make any adjustments or any changes. I'd say two with Mr. Majib or with the city manager or with somebody, could be any department head, not any department head, but what I want to say with either city manager or with our city attorney. So what do I hear?
Mayor, I have a comment.
Okay.
Several years back, a council committee looked at the travel plan. It was myself, former council member John Ashcraft, and former council member Bob Smith. They went out to the business community and asked questions. That's where the policy we have comes from now, but that was their charge from the council at that time. So that's where this recommendation of this travel policy that we have now came from. So, I just want to make a statement that we have looked at that in the past.
Right. Well, that's what I said. Does the council want to leave it? Does the council want to, and I would suggest a two-party committee, if that's what they want, to look at it and come back and say, we can recommend this or we recommend that, or whatever. They can come back and say, we recommend no changes, we recommend these changes, then the council can either approve it or turn it down.
Why not pass the travel policy to all council members to look at?
Why don't do what?
And bring it back at the next meeting, let all council members look over the travel policy.
I think that's a good idea.
And that way, people would be more ready to make a decision what they want to do.
Is that agreeable with the council?
Yes, and I don't think that you need to put department heads or put staff in a position to look at our travel. I think that's something that we need to handle as a council, as a group. And that's something that we need to do. And I see, the one thing that I see is that we have a city manager who is subordinate to the council, who is approving travel, and that should not, I don't think that a subordinate should be approving travel to any supervisors, which is basically what we are. So I think we need to do this as a group, as a council. And so I think what Dottie said was a good idea. Let's just take this and look at it. Let's bring it back, put it on another session. We'll talk about it after we've had a chance to look at everything and everybody's got their comments on what they'd like to see.
Good idea. Okay. Does everybody agree with that?
I don't have a problem with that, man. I just want to ask one question of Majid. He talked with these other cities to see, how they operate their policies. And it appears that in all of the cities that he contacted, either the city manager or the finance director or someone in their staff is the person that either approves or looks over these travel documents and makes a determination if there's a problem, to contact someone on council or make council aware there's a problem. Is that considered to be best practice?
Councilmember Jordan, with respect to what we've heard from the others, that's a sampling obviously from 5 other cities, and it's the practice they follow. And in some cases, for example, when we spoke with the Greenville city clerk who's involved, there is no approval, but they basically look at it and say, if it's a public purpose and you have funds in your account, then you can go forward. But it depends on each place, and they're not, when I say approval, for example, Concord does say expenditures are approved, but the others will say someone has to either approve it technically, because that's what happens for other staff. But I think in terms of a best practice, no one identified what a best practice is. The School of Government has not given us any indication as to what a best practice would be. So it is usually what is that city comfortable with doing.
So, and the only reason I bring that up is it appears that you've spent a lot of time in taking a look at this and bringing us the information that is practiced by other cities. And it looks like we're getting ready to maybe think about doing a departure from that. So I was just wondering why other cities do not find a problem with that, but we seem to find a problem with it. That's all. That's why I was asking the question.
Well, usually, policies, laws, and everything is usually reactionary. It's usually after something happens is when they go back and look at something. So I think that, being a department head or having been a department head, it does put staff in a bad position when you start asking staff to approve things from the council. And that's my comment on that.
Okay, well, and that's fine. I can appreciate you being a department head, but as a council member, you look at policy, and we don't look at the nuts and bolts of what the staff does on a day-to-day basis. And I have every confidence that if we come up with good enough policies, that the staff will be able to make a determination of whether or not these policies are being carried out.
Well, the only reason I was suggesting the city manager or city attorney was just for guidance and information as we were just got through seeking. That's the only reason I was saying that a while ago. I know it's up to the council to decide on how they want to go, what they want to add or what they want to delete. And I have no problem with that. And I think it'd be good for, if we get, Mr. Hyde, if you'd see that each councilman, and they may already some have it, but let's be sure each council person has a copy of it. And
We'll try to get you a copy before the end of your 6 o'clock meeting, if we can get them going.
we'll put it on another 4 o'clock afternoon meeting if that's agreeable with the council. Is that what I'm hearing? Yes. Okay, that takes care of that. That concludes our afternoon meeting. Does anyone have anything they want to add? Hearing none, I'll take a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second, all